What is your impression towards gambling? You may think gambling is bad, is negative, but is this true? I don't think so. I believe there are multiple views on everything. My name is Kenneth, and I'll bring out the debate on student gambling between two sides in this film.
Hi, my name is Alex. I study computer science here at the University of Sussex, and I am president of the Poker Society. I would define gambling addiction as somebody who gambles a lot, but it impacts on their home life, it impacts on their personal life, and it impacts on their work life.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm Vice President of Poker Soccer and I'm in my second year studying history here at Sussex. For me, student gambling just seems normal to me. It's just as normal as like having a drink, smoking, and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, normal.
My name's Jim Orford. I'm Emeritus Professor at the University of Birmingham, and I have a long-standing interest in gambling, and I've written books and articles about gambling and worked on national British gambling surveys. I would define gambling addiction in much the same way as I define any addiction. It's if someone is doing something a lot and it's causing problems for them or for other people, and then if they try to stop it or cut it down, they find it difficult to do so.
I'd say there's definitely a few forms of gambling addiction. There's sort of obviously the worst form, that if you're going out and sort of not telling anyone and spending more than you can actually afford. And then there's sort of other forms, like the lesser sort of form where you just purely just enjoy gambling. Like, there's nothing, it is fun. You're more addicted to the fun than the actual sort of need it. When you get to the point that you need to win, that's when it goes too far.
I think there's several ways in which you can tell whether you're addicted to something. Certainly one of those, which is very relevant to gambling, is if you're spending more money than you can really afford. That's certainly something. But money is not the only thing. And it has been suggested that with students particularly, the amount of time you spend is also important. So it could be that you have a student who is not spending an enormous amount of money, but actually is spending far too much time that he or she cannot afford, and it's affecting studies and results at exams, for example.
I would define gambling addiction as somebody who gambles a lot, but it impacts on their home life, it impacts on their personal life, and it impacts on their work life. So just because you have a lot of money, and if you gamble, and if you lose a lot of money, I think if it's impacting your home life, if the money thing isn't an issue, but it's affecting your relationship and it's affecting how you work and you're not getting any sleep, I think that's when it becomes an addiction, that's when it's a problem. The aim of Poker Society is probably to bring people together. Yeah, just to make friends and play some poker and hopefully learn a little bit about poker if you're interested in poker. I think in the way that we do it here with Poker Society, it's quite a healthy thing, because we all just get together, we only spend £5 maximum, and we just sit around, drink some beer and play some poker, and hopefully you walk away with £100 in your pocket.
Gambling in a way is, it's an attraction, isn't it, to people, because it offers the prospect of winning money for very little. You make a little stake might win you much more money. And that's the way gambling is advertised. If you see gambling advertisements on television, they're suggesting you can win money.
Gambling is fun, as it provides a chance for me to win money. I don't know if I'm addicted or not, but I always want to play more, no matter I'm winning or losing. However, as a student, I always prioritize study, and gambling is just a way for relaxing.
Students are in an age group that we know is one of the most vulnerable to having problems with gambling. The Gambling Commission has just produced summaries of their figures of the last several years, and the 16 to 24 year age group is the most vulnerable to problem gambling.
I play very infrequently and for too low stakes for it to be problematic for me. I maintain good relationships with everyone around me, and I make sure it doesn't impact my life, and I know when to stop. I won't gamble if I can't afford food for the week. I think that's probably not an addiction. I think it's an addiction when it starts to become a negative influence on the people that surround you.
See, for students, it's quite a interesting paradigm, because you've got you've got the fun factor there, but you haven't always got the bankroll and the money to pay for that, pay for that enjoyment. So then that's where it can be fairly easy for a student to fall into sort of a pattern of gambling like that. But I'd say most people that I know are, obviously, you're coming to university, you're obviously a smart person, know themselves well enough to be able to control it.
Yes, I don't know whether sort of people's educational level is necessarily relevant at all here. I think most people who gamble and become regular gamblers or committed gamblers who are spending quite a lot of money or time on it mostly think it's going to be fine. They think they're in control. They think it's not a problem. They think it's giving them happiness and not unhappiness. And I think that cuts across all educational levels and all socioeconomic levels. The thing about skill and control is that it's a basic psychological fact that we like to think we are in control of things most of the time. So most poker players, I imagine, will overestimate the amount of skill involved and probably underestimate the amount of luck.
I think there must be some kind of skill involved in gambling, so I know I can win the money back. Maybe not this time, but probably the next time. I usually go to the casino with my friends, as I believe they would stop me when I lose too much.
I think if you tell someone that you think you've got a problem, that person can then help you. It's the same with sort of any mental issue. If the first step to solving it is admitting to yourself that you have that problem, and then if you're just going through it alone, no one else can sort of help you with it. If you're losing more than you can afford to play with, then yeah, certainly change. But if not, and you're still having that, you've still got that fun factor, you're not feeling oh, I need to win here, that's when it sort of starts to get sort of deeper and darker and stuff, and you should change it. But at the end of the day, the person who can change it, there's only one person, and that's you.
There's no doubt that most people who give up addictions of different kinds do it themselves, whether it's smoking or drinking or whatever it is. Most people do it themselves without much help. But when addiction becomes more serious, most people actually benefit from some outside help. So I would always recommend to a student or anyone else who thinks their gambling might be becoming a problem, I would always recommend trying to get some help from the student counselling service or from someone else who may be able to help talk you through what it is, the question of control, the question of whether you're spending too much money or time. So a helping hand of one sort or another is usually helpful.
In my opinion, student gambling is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just as long as you're smart enough to sort of know yourself and know your limits, then as long as you can keep it in check, it's absolutely fine.
My advice to students about gambling is just to be very careful about it, because I think unlike drug problems, for example, which we know a lot about and it's talked about a lot, or alcohol problems are well understood, gambling problems on the whole are not very well understood, and most people are not sufficiently aware of gambling problems and how very serious it can be. And people they dig themselves in deeper by thinking you can make up some of your losses, some of your debts by further gambling. So it can get worse, it can spiral out of control.
For Alex, Dan, and Professor Alford, they had similar and opposing arguments on student gambling and gambling addiction. People always think gambling is bad because of stereotypes. But the truth is, everything could be addictive, not just gambling. The subject itself is not the concern. What we should focus on is the behavior. So may I ask again, what is your impression towards gambling?